We'll try this here.
We're fighting.
So knees in his armpits, hands on his neck, and from here, you know, it's yeehaw. And you also might notice that you cover up his eyes right away. Covering up their eyes, it does seem to relax them. Now, we're not entirely sure why it works. There are several theories. My personal favorite theory is you cover up their eyes, they can't see anything, they think they're dead. Now, I don't absolutely believe this, but we need to remember that his brain, it's the size of a walnut. That's twice as big as mine is. It's actually how he got this job.
Dang.
Any smaller at all, and I'd be a manager.
Oh.
So before we go any further with the actual handling, I'd like to take just a minute and point out some of the characteristics that really make these guys such a cool, unique animal. And we're going to start that on the inside of his mouth. Now he's not going to get... Sit.
Oh, Cousin Michael. That's Freddie.
Boy. So you might notice when his mouth is open here, he's not going to give us a great look. We are going to speed this up, by the way. You might notice when their mouth is open, you cannot see down his throat. Now the reason for that is actually his tongue. His tongue's going to seal off at the back of his throat, and it's going to allow them to open their mouth while under the water without taking any into his gut. So it's incredibly rare to actually see down their throat. There's only a couple of times you ever will, like when they're yawning, or you're being eaten alive. Now also on this discussion of valves, his nostrils, they're on the top of his mouth right here. His ears are these two flaps here. They're going to seal off underwater as well, making them completely airtight for this aquatic life. In fact, it's going to allow them, kind of like we were talking earlier, they're going to be able to lay in the water with just those eyes above the surface, and that makes for a great hunting, a great stalking ability. But it won't be so good for the actual confrontation. But they have an ability for this as well. He can retract his eyes back into his skull. They're then going to be protected by this heavy bony ridge. Nothing's going to hurt them at that point. Now also you might notice as they come up from underwater, or when his eyes open up right here, they kind of look like they're rolling backwards. Now that's a secondary eyelid. It's very thin. It's known as the nictitating membrane. And it's basically a built-in pair of diving goggles. It's going to allow them to see better while underwater. Now these guys also have very short, stubby legs with a comparatively heavy head, belly, and tail. You might be thinking to yourself, why is he worried? They can't run very fast. Any one of these animals can outrun any one of us at short distances. And in the water, they have front and back webbed feet, as well as this large, heavy tail. Larger alligators and crocodiles have been known to reach speeds well over 10 miles an hour. Now, we're going to get back to these jaws here because there is an incredible amount of closing force. In comparison, there's relatively no opening force, and I'll show you what I mean by that, alright? It's not that hard for me to grab these jaws and simply force it shut just like this. You know, I'm not using a whole lot of strength. That's not the issue when it comes to actually closing their jaws. But because they live in the water, they're going to be wet, they may have an algae buildup. You know, I go to grab those jaws and I don't have a good handle. It's not going to take too much for him to shake his head back and forth, for me to lose my placement, you know, have my hands in a spot he can then get a hold of. It's not going to feel too good. You guys seem like a very smart crowd. This probably goes without saying. But when you close their jaws, it's got to be a nice tight grip. I'm going to slide my hands to the top and then rock back just like this. Now holding him like this doesn't hurt him at all. All this does is it limits his movement even further. While sitting like this, he cannot try the death roll. And that's a benefit to me, because say he were to roll while I was on his back. No. Was anyone going to warn me? I don't think I forget about that. So like I said, when I hold his head like this, he can't try his death roll. It's a benefit to me, because if he were to roll, one of two things is about to happen. First, he starts rolling. He's going to end on his side. From there, have a clear shot at my belly, my chest, my face. It's not going to make for a very good night. The second thing that can happen is he goes to roll. You know, his big, heavy legs, his tail is going to get tangled up with my legs. We're going to start to roll for about 10 to 15 seconds. After that, you're going to see me on the turf. The alligator's then going to be on my back. And now the show is about him properly shutting my mouth. But honestly, this is how we do our job on a daily basis. If we need to get out here, check an injury, you know, I'm going to come out here, do this. Somebody can check any sort of injuries that we need. If for any reason we have to move him to another location, we can then tape his jaws shut and do that as well. Now, the most important part about alligator wrestling is knowing how to jump off without getting bit. Couple of ways to do this. The safest way is you simply cover up his eyes, press their head into the ground, and you just look back, making sure that his friends aren't there. So I'm going to have to make sure that it's straight back, kind of to the left here. Eyes closed, head into the ground, quickly kind of look up, and jump off just like that. So that is the proper way to go about wrestling an alligator. Thank you, guys. Now you also may have noticed that we were getting a little bit more activity up on land, and in the water they like to line up, as they are right there. That's called the buffet line. And then it means that it's almost time for the feeding portion of the show. So what I'm looking for is right at about 4 or 5 small-ish volunteers.
Am I small?
So, don't think you guys actually get what I mean by that. Your older siblings and your parents may, and I'm sorry. But I am just joking. I do have a bucket of food there in the back, and I will run and get it. But I'd like to point out something about their teeth first. Now, the shape of their teeth, they're actually conical. They're round and pointed. We'll see if this guy over here wants to show us. Those teeth right there, they're conical, round and pointed. With a tooth of that nature,